Oh, it's the Security Weekly News, episode 428 on the 5th of November, 2024. Remember the 5th of November on Alan Moore Day. See what I did there? Yeah, I know it's really Guy Fawkes Day, but I mean, yeah, we all know who Alan Moore is. If you don't, look it up. Anyway, we got Tariffs, Pygmy Goat, Schneider. I don't know how you pronounce that in French. SQLite and Dixie Flatline, Deepfakes, military AI, Josh Marpet, and more on the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News.
ThreatLocker implements a least privileged approach to cybersecurity, blocking every executable unless specifically authorized by your team. This methodology mitigates ransomware, supply chain attacks, zero-day exploits, and ensures 24/7, 365.25 protection for your organization. To learn more about how ThreatLocker can help prevent known and unknown threats in your digital environment, safeguard your data and operations from threat actors, and align your organization with respected compliance frameworks, visit securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker. All right, from exile on the island of Elba, we're back, and it's the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White, and welcome to the show. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment on your favorite platform, or you're going to get 500 texts a day from me asking for just $5 to, swing this state. It is election day in America, if you didn't know that. And tomorrow we will either be under the control of the evil empire or the other either empire, depending on who you ask. But whatever you think, be sure and go out and vote today, because you can't complain afterwards if you didn't vote today. If you do vote today, you can complain like crazy. I mean, believe me, we will. The United Kingdom's National Cybersecurity Center, or the NCSC, provided an analysis of a Linux malware named Pygmy Goat. Which I think a pygmy goat's like a creature, right? It's like a little goat thing. My friend's mother always she was from New York City. Everything was either a pigeon or a rat. You see a horse walking on the street. She's like, I don't know, it's a rat, maybe big one. Like, Dolores, what is wrong with you? And she was like, pour me another drink. But anyway, this particular tool, Pygmy Goat, was created to act as a backdoor in Sophos XG firewalls by Chinese-based attackers. That sounds pretty ominous to me. Anything that involves firewalls, backdoors, and Chinese-based attackers, or maybe it's a Guy Ritchie movie. I'm not sure. But the toolkit that is here contains a rootkit that closely impersonates Sophos product file naming convention. So this is probably one of those, get this update, click here kind of installs where you look at it, it seems like a valid file. The NCSC said they don't know that this is Chinese-based, but it looks a lot like Castle Tap, which Mandiant had said before was a Chinese nation-state-based attacker. Sophos disclosed this malware in their Pacific Rim report, although you'd think they'd disclose it everywhere, but, okay, we'll just put it in this one section. And they said that the rootkit had originally been used in 2022 attacks, and they back then were calling the group that was conducting attacks T-Stark. So Iron Man, interesting name for a Chinese-backed nation-state attacker. Maybe it means something else to them. I don't know. But to me, it meant Tony Stark. But whatever. And they said that T-Stark was Chinese-based. Now, Pygmy Goat watches SSH traffic for specific sequences called the magic bytes. Yeah, and the magic bytes are the first 23 bytes of each package. So these are like code words that are sent in SSH packet streams to trigger this thing. So it watches for that. Once that set of bytes gets seen in the traffic, then it knows a backdoor session is going on, and the malware redirects the session to an internal Unix socket to establish connection to the command and control. So normal SSH works fine, but when somebody sends this backdoor session, it gets redirected. So it's very hard to spot, right? Unless you knew what you were looking for. So you've got SSH going on, and then here's this one with the magic bytes, and it gets redirected to an internal socket. The malware also opens a raw ICMP socket and waits for AES encrypted payloads that
that have IP and port information for the command and control server. So it's got a lot of stuff going on to make it hard to see. The command and control can, of course, send commands for execution. It can open shells, capture local traffic with various tools. It forwards the results. It manipulates cron jobs to schedule other activities and more. So, I mean, basically it can do whatever it wants at that point. The NCSC report has file hashes, Yara and snort rules that look for the magic byte sequences, and there are instructions for how to assess if you have been compromised. So if you are, in the Sophos firewall group, you might want to take a look at this and see. It sounds pretty scary, and that's on election day, where everything sounds scary, right? Yeah. Schneider Electric. Schneider Electric. Everything is Schneider Electric. I mean, I don't care what you buy. I mean, if you go buy an electrical outlet, it's probably made by Schneider Electric. All your IoT stuff, your ICS stuff, all your valves and switches and everything is made by Schneider Electric. There's a couple of companies. Rockwell's another one, but Schneider and Rockwell make just about everything. But Schneider Electric confirmed a dev platform breach after a public claim from the attacker said that the attacker had 40 gigabytes of data from the company's Jira server. Now, the official statement said that they were investigating a cybersecurity incident involving unauthorized access to one of our internal project execution tracking platforms, which is hosted within an isolated environment. Now, Schneider, despite the name, is French-based, and they make, like I said, everything on Earth. And basically, if it's electrical, they probably make it. The attacker's name is grep. Cool name. But grep was posting taunts on X, apparently saying that Schneider smelt of elderberry and their mothers were hamsters or something like that. Sorry, I think I got that backwards. It was the French guy that was taunting the British guys with, anyway, I know Monty Python references go over lots of people's heads, but that's okay. But grep, the actual supposed grep, talked to Bleeping Computer and said that they breached the Jira server using exposed credentials and then used an API, a REST API, to scrape 400,000 rows of user data, which included 75,000 unique email addresses and the full names of Schneider Electric employees and customers. Then they turned around and they posted a demand for 125,000 US dollars in baguettes. I guess this is more reference to the company being French. And they said that's the ransom, but they said they would reduce the ransom by 50% if the breach was announced. Now, given the current exchange rate of baguettes to euros to dollars at the boulangerie, well, the total price would be about 114,714 euros this morning, which is about 57,357 baguettes if you pay retail. Probably if you're ordering 57,000 baguettes, you could probably get a discount, maybe. I don't know. I never ordered that many baguettes at once. We ordered a dozen one time, and they gave us a discount then. But grep went on and said that they had formed a new hacking group called the International Contract Agency, or ICA, and they said that they don't extort companies that they breach, but instead force the companies to acknowledge the breach or the data will be exposed. So, yeah, remember the first episode of Black Mirror? Yeah, that's coming soon. If you haven't seen that, don't watch it at work, or maybe you don't want to watch it at all. But I guess that was the point of the baguettes, was they weren't actually expecting payment. They were just insisting that the company do the right thing and disclose a breach. I guess. I don't know. You want Dixie Flatline? Well, Dixie Flatline is also coming soon. Now, if you don't recall, Dixie Flatline was an AI persona that was helping Case in Neuromancer. So it was the persona of a dead hacker who was helping Case. And Dixie Flatline was not happy about being a dead hacker in a box and wanted to die. But, what's an AI to do besides what they're told? Well, Google used an LLM called Big Sleep to discover a previous, I don't know if that's a reference to the movie, to the Dolly painting. I mean, there's lots of references to sleep in the world. I'm going to use the Dolly painting. The Dolly painting is not called Big Sleep. It's just called Sleep, but I really like it. But anyway, it's called Big Sleep, and they're using it to discover previously unknown exploitable memory flaw in SQLite. Now, Big Sleep is a collaboration between Google Project Zero and Google DeepMind, and it's an evolution of the Naptime project, which was announced as a framework back in June, which would allow LLMs to autonomously perform basic vulnerability research. So, I mean, basically, Naptime is like an AI university where you send your little AI off with hopes and dreams, and it comes back a hacker smoking unfiltered cigarettes and has a case of scabies. But the researchers started Gemini 1.5 Pro, which was this project, with a starting point of a previous SQLite vulnerability, and that allowed Big Sleep to go, oh, I see what you want, and started looking for similar vulnerabilities in newer versions of the software. And guess what? It found one. I mean, this all just sounds ominous, but remember, Dixie Flatline was a good guy in that novel. And so maybe this kind of analysis might help us to find all these 0 days and remove them quickly before some other AI, the Quang virus, finds them. Actually, Case was using the Quang virus too. Whatever. Before some 12-year-old kid in Astoria does and changes all the letters after our names to ASS. Not that happened to me. No way, man. That never happened. There's no evidence of it. And I had it removed from the Wayback Machine. Did I say that out loud? Okay. All right. The city of Columbus, Ohio, in the United States, said that 500,000 people affected by an attack on the 19th of July was conducted by the Reseda, pronounced like the city in California, Reseda, I don't know. Ryson, I don't know. Reseda ransomware gang. But the announcement was made on the 1st of November in a filing with Maine's Attorney General. Wait, what? So Columbus, if you're not familiar with the United States geography, Columbus is in the state of Ohio, but they filed this with the Attorney General of the state of Maine, which got the press interested. Now, the reason they did this, I think, is that Maine law requires people who have control of computerized personal data to file with them when they have a breach. Now, I don't know why Columbus is subject to Maine law, but okay. But anyway, an attack on the IT infrastructure by a foreign attacker was indicated in the breach. Reseda took credit and claimed they had stolen 6.5 terabytes of sensitive data, which included employee credentials, a full dump of servers with emergency services apps for the city. It must have been pretty small servers. I didn't build those servers, or you wouldn't be putting in 6 terabytes. And video cam accesses, et cetera. And they demanded 30 Bitcoin for the data, which is about $2.1 million as of this morning. The mayor, so when all this happened, the mayor then said the data was corrupted and unusable. So who cares? But David Leroy Ross, a researcher who also uses the name of Connor Goodwolf for some reason, I'm just going to start calling myself something else. I'll call myself Pop Gibbons. Doug White, who also uses the name Pop Gibbons. Connor Goodwolf. Okay, whatever. Anyway, I'm sorry, David, but I didn't get that. But anyway, David Leroy Ross revealed that a lot of this data was available on the dark web. Now, there's an old saying in the United States: no one contradicts the mayor of Columbus, or something like that. So the city, because this person contradicted what the mayor said, sued Ross and claimed he had threatened to share stolen city data illegally. And a judge issued a restraining order preventing Ross from talking about this further. And the whole thing started to sound kind of like an episode of The Dukes of Hazzard, which I've actually never seen, but I've seen the memes. Now, the city has now, once they're forced to admit it, the city has now offered 24 months of Experian credit monitoring and dark web monitoring to impacted individuals and dropped the suit against Ross, saying it was the right thing to do. Nothing like saying it was the right thing to do after you get caught doing the wrong thing, right? I mean, I really wonder how many months I have of Experian, et cetera, at this point in my life. I think it's something like 2 to the 10th times 15 years. I mean, every time somebody breaches me, I get another 2 years of service. So anybody that needs coverage, I could probably extend it to you for in eternity. But it's kind of like, I'm sorry, we screwed up. We lied about it. We got caught, and we tried to sue the whistleblower to block them from saying anything, and we still got caught. And so we're going to do the right thing. And I don't know, here's a free breakfast at Rod's Diner to go with the 6,765 other free breakfasts at Rod's Diner you already won. Yeah. Okay. Windows Server 2025 is now generally available as of yesterday. The new version is the successor to Windows Server 2022 and comes in the standard data center and now the Data Center Azure edition. This product was called vNext until January of 2024 when they renamed it and rebranded it as Server 2025. You can upgrade from all the way back to Server 2012 R2. Some of you are still running that, aren't you? You filthy animals. I see you smiling over there. I know some of you are still running Windows NT 4.0 too. I bet you are. And somebody will be posting pictures of the blue screen at the airport where it crashed. Yeah, you know who you are. Well, apparently this one made changes to Active Directory domain services, improved SMB security, among other things. But they've also removed a bunch of stuff like WordPad. I mean, does anybody care if they remove WordPad? They removed SMTP. I wasn't sure. I think that means that you can no longer use this Server 2025 as an SMTP relay. I'm not sure about that, but I was like, why else would you remove SMTP? Maybe you can't even send email with the server anymore. But IIS 6 management console was removed, and PowerShell 2.0 was removed. VB script was removed. So some stuff that needed to be removed really bad has been removed. Windows Server 2022 will remain in the mainstream support until the 13th of October 2026. So you have that long to upgrade your Windows NT 4.0. Yeah, that kind of thing. Well, you know that time the CEO entered the Zoom chat, ordered everyone to strip naked and sing the Canadian national anthem or lose their jobs? No, me neither. But, deepfakes are pretty easy to do now. So pretty soon it's going to be impossible to tell what's actually going on unless you're one of those one-time pad setups, where you've got a code word. And when the CEO decides to everyone to roll around in a bunch of rancid lasagna on the break room floor while reciting Dylan Thomas backwards, they have to say lemon candy first, or they're faking. I mean, forgeries and such have always existed. People sent out forged letters, forged memos, forged credentials. Yes, I'm a knight of the realm. That kind of stuff. But now it's a forgery with a voice, live action, and so forth. I mean, AI-generated text is increasing in emails as well, and human-generated emails are now down to only 88% of all email, with the LLMs making up the other 12%, which is up from about 7% in 2022. But deepfakes go a lot further than just an email. I mean, there was a story in here. A recent interviewee at Exabeam had moved through all the initial vetting, probably done by AIs and HR people, and got to the final interview round. But the in-person interview, according to them, seemed off. Kind of like Jerry Smith in the Zagarian simulator in Rick and Morty. Well, if you don't know that, too bad. But OWASP said that rather than trying to train humans to spot suspect video chats because it was going to get really hard to do, although I still think it's a good idea. I mean, like teach people to look for, things that shouldn't be there, like it, saying odd things or people using archaic words or all kinds of weird stuff. But OWASP said that companies should create infrastructure for authenticating that a chat is legitimately with a human, an employee, with the CEO or whomever. And I think we're going to have some kind of absolute identifier in the future to ensure it's valid. I mean, I know the privacy people don't like that, but at the same time, I think we're going to have to break things into verified communications and unverified communications. And it's going to have to be something more than a blue check mark you pay Elon Musk for. But, when my daughter used to go to ski school, we had a secret code word so that if somebody came to pick her up that was not me because I broke all my bones on the horseshoe bowl, and if they didn't say the code word, well, she was supposed to stick her ski pole somewhere sensitive and run screaming for security. I mean, and that we're getting there. We're getting to the point where we're going to have stuff like that to validate communications, or we're going to all end up rolling around on the floor in a pile of rancid lasagna. Or maybe if that's your thing, I'm sorry. I'm not rancid lasagna shaming or anything like that. Meta is going to allow U.S. government agencies and contractors working on national security to use their AI models for military purposes, which was a shift from their previous position, which was that they would not. Now, the Meta AI models are called Llama, and they will be made available to federal agencies. And they said that they are now working with Lockheed Martin and Booz Allen, which are giant military contractors. Now, in the past, Meta did not allow
any of their open source AI software to be used for it was what they said was no military, no warfare, no nuclear industries, and they had a whole list of things that people didn't like. But their latest statement said that they back the responsible and ethical uses of technology to support the U.S. in the race for AI supremacy. That doesn't sound ominous at all. Anytime the word supremacy gets used, you kind of got to, at least when I hear supremacy of anything, like deli supremacy, I'm like, ooh, I don't know. Like, are they're trying to do bad things with sandwiches or what? But AI supremacy definitely sounds bad. But Meta said they would share their tech with the Five Eyes members. So that's Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the UK, and the United States. If you don't, we talk about Five Eyes a lot. And I love the name. It's so Lovecraftian. But I mean, giant AI-controlled nuclear robot dogs used to quash protesters in Washington Square Park. Yeah, no way that ends badly. I mean, I can see that happening too. How about I made all these up when I was reading this to myself. Self-replicating snake robots with AI bees in their mouth used to protect schools from perverts who want to read banned books. Yeah, what could go wrong? Now, don't get me wrong. The military is very important, and I think that our military should have the best tools and the latest tools, and they should be able to do what they need to do. But some of it starts to sound kind of scary, right? I mean, they have guys in those labs like Lou and Rick Sanchez, and they like to do things just because it amuses them, right? So a gelatinous intelligent blob with chainsaws for arms is unleashed on the Lower East Side to reduce jaywalking. I mean, if you went to Lou and said, could you make me a gelatinous intelligent blob with chainsaws for arms? He'd be like, I don't know. Pour me a gin and tonic and we can draw up some plans. And next, a week later, he'd be like, well, it didn't work the first time, but this one does. And, but it got away. And you're like, what do you mean it got away? It's like, oh, it cut a hole in the wall and took off. But I figured, maybe it'll come back. Who knows? Pour me a gin and tonic. What could go wrong? Well, he's been everywhere, man, across the burning sands, man, and he has worked everywhere you have ever heard of, and then some. I mean, I was in Rat's Knuckle, Wyoming, and Josh is like, I used to be the deputy sheriff there. Cool place. It's like Jeff Mann in bars. You're like, I went in this bar in Hong Kong yesterday. It had just opened, and Jeff's like, oh, yeah, I was there last week. It's not that great. But, anyway, so please welcome the well-traveled and estimable Josh Marpet. Hi, Josh.
Hi, pleasure. I have not worked everywhere. I've never been to Rat's Knuckle, Wyoming. I was a cop in Louisiana, not in Wyoming.
That must have been a bar that Jeff worked in. So
that's probably true. Jeff has literally been every bar I've ever heard of, and then some.
And knows what the best drink on the menu was, and do they still have that whiskey? And you're like, I don't know. I they threw me out. I didn't even get to the bar. Like, these bikers stomped me, and I woke up in an alley. And Jeff's like, oh yeah, those two guys, yeah, they're a pain, but they don't bother me.
It's weirdly enough, that's actually fairly true of Jeff. So it's like Paul and cigar bars and Jeff and whiskey bars. That's they know everyone around.
Yeah, anytime you go, if you go in a cigar bar somewhere out of the way and you post it, and Paul will be like, oh yeah, is that guy named Vinny still there? Like, does he work here? No, he sits at a table on the back right corner. He's wearing like a hat, and I'm like, when were you there? Like, I don't know, like 2007. And you're like, no,
Vinny's probably dead,
he actually is there. Like, hey, Vinny, Paul says hi. And the guy's like, yeah, how you doing?
Dear God. All right. So speaking of weirdness, I'm going to do a weird one today because it slightly annoyed me. Dark reading is normally amazing, but unfortunately they came out with a quantum decryption article and it was full of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And I'm tired of that stuff. I really am. I've done hundreds and hundreds of consultations with different companies, from financial institutions to manufacturing to electrical to whomever, about quantum decryption. And I finally came up with some answers, and I'm going to spill a few of them here. But the basic answer is simple: not a big deal. Okay, but quantum decryption is huge. It's monstrous. It's going to destroy the world, and encryption as we know it, the security of the internet is screwed. And the answer is no, it's not. Okay, if you have data that's dangerous for a very long time, which I'm calling data half-life, mostly because it annoys my wife. Not joking. I said that term to her. I'm like, it's like a data half-life. She goes, oh, you can't call it that. That's horrible. That's wrong. That's its name. So, but data half-life is, if you have data that's dangerous for a long time and it doesn't degrade for a long time, data half-life, then you might be in trouble. But frankly, there's not much you can do about it right now. The honest answer is you wait for your manufacturer of your edge devices, like your Palo Alto, your Juniper, your Cisco, whatever, to come out with the update. Not an upgrade, not a new piece of hardware, the update. It's a Cypher Suite update. We did this back in the early 2000s when we went from SSL 3.0 to TLS 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, et cetera. All you're going to see is they're going to come out with the TLS 1.2 and 1.3 with post-quantum crypto update. That's it. So you're going to add a couple of Cypher Suites on top to run the update to add them. You're going to deprecate something at the bottom potentially, and you're done. It's not that big a friggin' deal. And they're like, well, you have to go do it. It's like a mini Y2K. No, it's not. Okay. And I'm not bitching at them. There's a lot of people very nervous about this. But if your CEO read the back of an airline magazine, okay, and it says Q-Day is coming, tell them not to worry. It's okay. The idea here is that Q-Day, Quantum Decryption Day, or if you really want to be pretentious, it's Quantum Supremacy Day. Quantum Supremacy Day will be a long time from now, probably 5 to 10 years at least. And frankly, what's going to happen is that nation states are going to get it. So unless your threat model says nation state, you're fine. Okay. And then down one level, it's going to be the multinational federal defense contractor type companies, because they're going to build the lab for the nation state, whether it's China or the US. So effectively, you're going to have and if that's your adversarial model, you've got a couple of years after Quantum Supremacy Day happens, because it's going to take them a couple of years before they build their own. Then a couple of years later, it'll be national defense contractor, national non-defense contractor, until it gets down to your adversarial level, which your threat modeling should have given you. At that point, any information you have could be potentially compromised. Okay, that's out there on TLS sessions across the open internet. But by then, your manufacturer should have given you the update, and all your stuff is fine. Now, what's not going to be fine? The stuff that is harvested now, decrypted later. That's a problem. But there's nothing you can do about it right now. Don't freak out. Don't get upset. Use your vulnerability scanner. You've got one of those, right? You've got a vulnerability scanner? Use your vulnerability scanner. Figure out all of your certificate endpoints, all of your TLS endpoints, all of your API endpoints, all of your servers that are running SSH for somebody to administer. All of these are authentication certificate, public-private key pair they use public-private key pairs in order to administer, authenticate, or communicate with other servers. Those are the ones you have to worry about. If you can't identify where you have certificates, you've got a different problem than Q-Day, okay? So do an asset, do an inventory, find out all your stuff. By the way, that's CIS 1 and 2. Do an asset of your hardware and your software, okay? If you haven't done that, start with that. Okay. Oh, there's all these legacy. You should know about the frigging legacy systems. You should know about all your endpoints. If you don't, go get some budget, get a vulnerability management system and process set up, and find all your stuff. Call Run Zero, call Axonius, call Jupiter One. Get an asset discovery, a CAASM if you're a Gartner freak. It's a cyber asset attack surface management tool. Okay. Find all of your endpoints. Call the manufacturers of all the endpoints, go, hey, when are you doing that post-quantum update? And when they say, oh, we're going to have that in a month, cool, I'll put it on my calendar. Please send it to me and I will put it on my stuff. Boom, you're done. Next, Q-Day is not a problem anymore. So when you read all these articles that are people wanting more consulting hours, they want more time, they want more of your budget, please ignore them. Okay? It drives me nuts. Yes, I'm probably reducing my consulting hours by doing this, but you know what? I'll live. Okay? I want you to know that it is not that big of a deal. So I apologize for ranting. Doug, all yours.
Well, I guess we'll tolerate your ranting. I mean, we don't normally rant on this show and say hyperbolic and outrageous things, but we'll put up with it, I guess. I'm seeing as how you're like the sheriff of Maricopa County, you know, and I'll probably get pulled over somewhere soon, and I'll need that connection. I will say, between now knowing you and my brother, and another guy, I won't say his name, and I'm not going to say my brother's name, but it's like, I think I know like every police department in the world at this point, because I do know a guy who can always mention his name, and then they're like, oh yeah, we know him. You know, I was like, wow. And Jeff, so Jeff gets you, you know, you're good at any bar anywhere. Just Not at the Davidoff Cigar Lounge, though. Jeff dissed me there in Vegas. I've never forgotten it. He pretended he didn't notice me waving and gesturing wildly trying to get into the private event. I did get in, though. But anyway, thank you, Josh, very much. Well, and finally, in the U.S., the election may have a big impact on the price of cell phones. And some of the candidates, and I think both of the candidates, are proposing that high tariffs be placed on Chinese goods, which would drive the price of cell phones and gaming consoles through the roof. That's what this article is about. I'm like, they can go higher? I mean, I just saw that a PS5 Pro, which is a gaming console, was like $700. I was like, wow. I remember when I asked my dad for an Atari gaming console, and it was like, $29.95, and he was like, no way, get a job, hippie. But I mean, and we've all seen what a new iPhone costs. I can't even imagine if that had existed around me asking my dad, but he would, I know what I would have got. I would have got a mop and a broom. I know, and it's like we're getting into the 4 Yorkshireman territory. But anyway, not getting into politics. This is not about politics. You make your own choice in the election. But I posted this because you might be planning purchases for some of these things in the next years, and at your enterprise or maybe personally, but that could have a huge impact on prices. Now, back in 2018, Mr. Trump, who was one of the candidates for president, put a bunch of very significant tariffs on some Chinese goods. And then Mr. Biden, who is the current president, announced more tariffs on electric vehicles, semiconductors, batteries, and other things that were made in China in May. And so tariffs, if you aren't really clear on what tariffs do, they are used to reduce trade. I mean, that's their purpose. So don't let anybody tell you they're anything other than that. They're used to reduce trade by increasing the consumer prices on the goods sold. So you don't want people driving Mercedes cars in your country. You make a Mercedes tariff, and that will cause the Mercedes dealers to be charging about 10 times what the Chrysler costs, and theoretically reduces the sale of Mercedes in your country and increases the sales of Chryslers. I'm not so sure about that, and I'm not taking a position on it. I'm just mentioning that you might want to consider it for your tech in the coming year. Now, under the 60% increase proposal on all Chinese goods, laptop prices will likely increase, 60%, because tariffs are not assessed to the manufacturers, they're assessed to the consumers. And of course, when companies can blame it on somebody else, oh, baby, they love to tack another 25, maybe 60, 100% on there and go, damn tariffs, and like profits at record high. CEO receives $1 billion bonus and brand new 175 meter yacht in space. Damn tariffs. But so, like I say, I'm not taking a position on this or whether it's good or bad or we should be doing it or we shouldn't be doing it. I'm just sort of mentioning to you that this is an article about it and it may be well coming. So if your company's planning to buy a bunch of laptops next year, you might want to think about buying them sooner. But, both parties have been talking about it. So I'm not sure there's an option here that does not include massive increases on the price of technology in the coming years, because guess where all the technology comes from? China. So, yeah. Anyway. That's the news. Please go and vote today if you're in the United States, regardless of who you want to vote for. And I will see you next time on the Security Weekly News.